How the Dice Fell. Flint Daniels and the Nightmare in the Garden of the Stars. Part 3.
When last we left our fearless explorers, they had booked a meeting with Twilight Sage. They were going to talk with him directly.
Who no one ever accidentally called Twilight Sparkle.
I actually slipped at one point because Shannon kept slipping that in there, and then finally it got into my brain enough, and I called him Twilight. I said Twilight Spark, and I stopped. I was like, "Ooh, Moon's gonna die." Anyway, so yeah, I remember there was some. They spent a while talking. At the end of last session, they had decided they were going to go talk with Twilight Sage. Oh, right, on the way down there, Tim was talking about getting his hat ready, the colander with all the wires and stuff, so that he could put the nightmare into things.
Right. Yeah.
And so he was already thinking about, like, oh, if we get to Twilight Sage, maybe if I nightmare him, it'll take out all the starflowers, because Chen had talked about how they were telepathically connected or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think she ever said telepathically. They communicate in a way that transcends language, was what she said.
Yeah, which I was like, I get it that these guys are, sending out these like dangerous things, but like, are we really jumping straight to genocide as our as our only?
Yeah. Well, I think it was more like he wanted to have genocide in his back pocket just in case. It's good to have genocide in your back pocket just in case.
Yeah, like, we're here to negotiate peacefully. By the way, if I press this button, your entire species dies. We're here to negotiate peacefully.
So anyway, they headed down, and so he was like, if I wear it, will they notice? And I'm like, it's in your inventory already. You don't really need to worry excessively about that. You can probably put a hat on real quick.
It's on your quick bar.
Yeah. So yeah, the party went down to the depths, the deepest part of the bunker, most secure area. There was like an honor guard of warrior starborn that came with them, and then they reached the doors, and Chen was like, there's likelihood of cultural misunderstanding. Before you jump to any conclusions about anything, just ask me. And so she opened the doors. She was, I think, quite concerned about Twilight Sage, because Chen is a diplomat, is born and bred as a diplomat. Twilight Sage is not. And so, yeah, there were a couple of points where she would really facepalm about stuff. But anyway, open the door, go inside, and as you can see behind me, there's the vista that they saw off in the distance of this cavern. The walls supported by these giant roots. There's this giant alien cabbage tree thing. I can't think of it. What was that?
And skulls.
The floor is covered in thousands and thousands of skulls. And
the Bettys.
Well, Chen explained that those are the fallen stars of Twilight Sage. Those are basically all of his children that did not become mature to reach starflowerhood. And so Tim was immediately like, the floor is covered in aborted fetuses. and Chen was just like,
aborted fetus is the perfect phrase for
yes.
Frank can log in on.
And yes, Frank comes in on me like, yes, the floor was covered in aborted fetuses. No.
That was exactly what happened.
You've missed some nuance to this situation.
Did I?
This is exactly what Chen was afraid of. Cultural misunderstanding. When you enter the room, it's like, yes, you may there may be some things that are disturbing or unsettling that will give you the wrong impression.
Like a carpet. of aborted fetuses.
Yes, and to
Were they tightly wound like Berber,
to
or was
clarify,
it loose pile?
to clarify,
You can actually see the picture right here.
yes, it's
Oh,
just
so that's
it's just a
definitely
bunch of skulls. It's just a
Okay.
bunch of skulls. So anyway, yeah, they're like, is there like a path that we can walk between all the skulls, or do we have to go crunchy across them? And there's like, yes, there's a path you can walk between the skulls. You don't have to go crunchy. So yes, they
That would be
approach.
offensive.
Yeah, I mean, if they literally didn't have a path, what do you expect? I mean,
Oh, maybe that's honorable. Yeah, maybe crunching the skulls of the foregone is the great honor.
yeah. Anyway, so they approach Twilight Sage. And he's got a whole lot of more of they resemble the technician Starborn, the sort of the monkey cat things. Only Chen refers to them as tenders instead of technicians. They are basically their job is taking care of Twilight Sage. And Chen is like, if Twilight's gonna talk to you directly, he'll assume direct control over one of these guys and speak through him. If that's disturbing to you, we can arrange a holographic interface. And I actually had art ready of like a hologram monkey face to do this, but they were like, no, that's all right. You can use meat puppets. We won't consider that disturbing. So yeah, Twilight Sage takes direct control on one of the tenders to act as his voice, and speaks with the party. Let me see if I remember all of the stuff. It was basically he reiterated some of the stuff that Chen had told them about how his people had been members of the old galactic organization. When they found out Leviathan was coming, and there was the Epiphany was a cognito-hazardous weapon. Starflowers are particularly susceptible to that kind of weapon, so they were very concerned. And so they decided that of the two factions, they were going to go with the Silence faction. They were going to hide. But now he actually knew what the other faction was, because the party was like, "What? Who's the other faction?"
Right.
So he started talking about how, he thought that his whole species should be killed. That was the best outcome.
Yes, because
and then Flint was like, "Oh well, I wasn't going to bring this up, but we totally have a way to kill your whole species."
Yes. Good thing I kept that in my back pocket. Yes, that's how it went. Twilight Sage was very not suicidal. He was like, yes, my people have done a terrible thing and they deserve destruction, and ideally you can help the suppression pack to do that as quickly and as efficiently as possible so that there will be less suffering.
It's like genosuicidal. It's like inventing a new
genosuicidal. I like that. Anyway, so Flint was like, now that you mention it, we totally have like a nightmare bomb we could set off in your brain, and if you're all connected, it'll take you all out. And Twilight Sage, upon them describing this mechanism that they had, he reacted with astonishment. He was like, "You found a sample of countermeasure?" And Shannon was like, "Whoa, that sounded like a capital C." And I was like, yes, it was. He pronounced it with a capital C, and you picked that up instantly. I like that. So yeah, the other faction in the old galactic organization, instead of hiding and shutting up and not being affected by the Epiphany, they had the notion of being aggressive. They were going to try and devise a counter Epiphany, some kind of cognito hazard that would, basically they'd feed it back into Leviathan and counterattack with it. And so they called it countermeasure.
What if we give the aliens a cold?
Yes, sort of. And so, yeah,
It's sort of like I feel like it's more like noise canceling headphones. It's like cognito canceling brain waves. I don't know.
the impression I get is it's a little bit more aggressive than noise canceling headphones. It's headphones that have like point defense lasers that shoot any speakers that they can detect.
Well, and they're both cognito hazards, but it's sort of, maybe it's more like a vaccination or something. It's like, you know, this is a cognito hazard. It makes you, it gives you nightmares, and it's really disturbing, but you don't turn into crystals and then turn into energy.
Yeah.
And so I guess it's better. Though I guess, I mean, we got hit by both, and we still got affected by the epiphany. So I guess it's not like a vaccination, but I guess it just fights the epiphany. I don't know.
Perhaps this is just an early prototype, because Twilight Sage actually did mention something along those lines of he hadn't, the Starflowers went and hid before countermeasure was fully developed. So
well, and it's true. I mean, it's the stuff is the obtanium that we encountered in the crystal brain it could be like a prototype, but maybe the stuff that's actually in the obtanium cells is maybe it's a more finished form.
Yeah. Or
I mean, it's interesting that it's just on this random meteor being mined. It makes you wonder, like, did they basically fail or die out or whatever, and that's just, and then later someone found this stuff and is like, cool.
It could be that these are things I'm sort of tossing out there for someone else to deal with. I like the notion that it's some kind of anti-Leviathan weapon. Whether it's going to work or not, I don't know what it does exactly, but we do know what it does is it kills starflowers. So Twilight Sage was totally on board with this notion. He's like, yeah, totally. I deserve to die along with my people. Problem is, they sort of consider me this crazy old man that yells at clouds at this point, and they've cut me off. You know, I kept telling them, you know, don't destroy the galaxy. Stop destroying the galaxy. And it's bad. And they were like, shut up, old man. And they've put me on their spam filters. So he's not directly linked with all the others now. So if they were to, you know, nuke him, it would just nuke him. And oh yeah, he also, when they sort of were like, you know, you're too hard on yourself and stuff like that, you know, he revealed that he actually was the principal designer of the mind snakes, the original version of it anyway, and the others sort of took his design and made it bad. They did bad things with it, but you know, he still considered himself, you know, responsible for having built the original concept.
Right.
The
party didn't really investigate that. There was some more details I had ready to go.
I guess we just assumed, like, we kind of just took that at face value. Like, I guess we assumed good intentions on his part. Like, he made a useful tool, and then he turned it into a horrible weapon. And it's like, yeah, I don't know. That just sounds normal. You're being too hard on yourself for that. It's not really your fault.
Yeah, that is sort of what it was. The I mean, probably the party will ask at some point. The original intention with the mind snakes that he had was that they would make civilizations content and prosperous to stay on just their homeworld, and also jam signals. No,
yeah, that's interesting. That's a little more like aggressive than I was imagining, but it's interesting.
Basically, the idea was, because the original idea the Starflowers had was they would do that. They would go back to their homeworld. They would shut out contact with the outside world, and then they would just wait for Leviathan to pass through the galaxy and not be affected. And hopefully everyone else would do the same, and then no one would get hit with the epiphany, and Leviathan wouldn't get charged up or whatever it does, and it wouldn't blow up the galaxy. And so it's here now, and no one else is doing that. In fact, they're doing the opposite of that. And so he was sort of, his original idea was like, well, let's make him do that. And then everyone will be safe and everyone will be fine. And then after Leviathan's gone through, we're okay. But yeah, then it got turned into a also blow up their planets and kill everyone thing, because that's even more reliable. And he was like, whoa, that's a bit far. And they're like, you're already done your part of the project, old man.
Yeah.
And then schism happened.
So where are the rest of these, the other faction? So there's the Silence. Was there a name for the other faction?
Well, now Countermeasure has been put out there.
Okay.
I am thinking of them in my head as the Countermeasure faction, but it hasn't been explicitly said.
Right.
Yeah. It's not intentionally supposed to map to Pill's factions of the world, but if you did, then the Silencers would be hiders and the Countermeasure would be destroyers, but it really doesn't match up.
Right.
Because right now the Silencers are the ones going around blowing everything up. And as far as we know, the Countermeasure faction's just gone. Right. So it doesn't actually map. But anyway, so yeah, they mentioned this possibility to him, and he is like, okay, well, I do have a possibility in mind. I have basically, I'm really smart. He at several points mentioned quite straightforwardly that he's the most intelligent being on this planet. And Chen would facepalm because diplomacy here. He had come up with basically a hacking device that if you stuck it into the telepathic antenna that these starflowers use to sort of connect to each other, he'd be able to forcibly link himself back in and bypass their spam filters. So he suggested, well, why don't you take this thing? The nearest starflower to me, is a guy called Radiant Fury. He sucks. Take this to his communication array, jam it in there, then come back to me and kill me with Countermeasure. And then there we go. Easy peasy. And
barely an inconvenience.
Yeah, barely inconvenience. So the party was like, yeah, can we not kill you? Twilight Sage is like, okay, if you really want to try and find a solution, it doesn't do that.
Flint Daniels made a big impassioned speech about how, basically he was he thinks he's being like, such a hero by doing this, but really it's a cowardly approach, because he's not taking any responsibility. He's not going to be here to try to clean up the mess. Like the brave approach is to stay alive and try to clean up the mess that the Starflowers have made. And that's the thing that takes real moral courage. And that was like his impassioned argument to Twilight Sage.
And so yes, I didn't even make him draw a card for that. That was a good argument and well delivered. And so Twilight Sage was like, fine, all right, I'll survive if I can. So the alternative to forcibly hooking me up and bypassing it and doing all that is if you can get directly into Radiant Fury's bunker and like adjacent to him, like you are to me now, and you deliver this the nightmare directly to his central stock, then that'll be effectively the same thing. Except since they've excluded me, I'll survive.
Right.
So, works out. And so yeah, the party decided that would be plan A. That was what Twilight referred to as plan B. Of course, plan A is he'd like to die, but if the party insists on plan B as the first one, they'll do that. And so yeah, he was like, okay, I will send some of my technician Starborn along with you. And that way, the Radiant Fury's like senses will indicate that it's a group of my Starborn that are approaching him, and he won't be on guard.
Yeah, we said we were going to wear them like backpacks. I think that was
Yes.
his idea.
Yes, they like cling to your backs.
So you got monkey cat backpacks.
Yeah, we asked, like, is it going to be? Is it normal for you to send emissaries or whatever over there?
Yes,
and he said that. Yeah.
Radiant Fury may interpret it as an attempt at seduction. Because that is starflowers, when they wish to exchange pollen, they send emissaries. Their Starborn carry the pollen to their neighbors.
So he didn't think Radiant Fury would be very pleased with this advance, but he's not going to attack and kill on sight like he would if he thought we were part of the suppression pact.
Yeah. So yeah, now all the party has to do is find the secret entrance to Radiant Fury's bunker out in the desert. And fortunately, we had exactly the right mini game for searching for something in the desert. And fortunately, I was feeling somewhat vindictive after all those mini games John put me through last adventure. So yes, I made everyone play Forbidden Desert. Now, I've played that game a couple times myself, and I've won every time.
I too have won every time, other than the time I played with John.
Okay, well,
I've played it about 10 times with like people that are good at board games. I've never won once. It's always been almost always been a crushing defeat, occasionally a close defeat.
Yeah. So there's a very common factor here. But anyway, so yeah, the party tried playing the game and they were crushingly defeated very quickly. So Tim was like, can we treat that as like a practice round? Because none of us have ever played it before. And I was like, sure, okay. It was a quick defeat. So I'll say that was a practice round. And so they played again. And they did a much better job of being very strategic and like balancing the different, you have to make sure your water's good, but you can't spend all your time looking for water. You have to also search for things and all that. And they almost won.
Yeah, it was down to, we had to draw 4 cards. And there was 2, you draw 2, and then we had to reshuffle and draw 2 more. And when you reshuffle, then you lose, you don't know what's coming, right?
Yeah.
We were like, okay, after this reshuffle, as long as neither of these top 2 cards is a sun beats down, we're gonna win. But if we get a sun beats down, we can't save everyone. There's just no way, right? And so we draw them, both cards are sun beats down.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't want to. I shuffled the deck, and I was like, I don't want to be my fault if it's sun beats down. And Tim was like, okay, I'll cut the deck. And so, but then I was like, but if I hadn't said that, Tim wouldn't have cut the deck, and then it wouldn't have been a sun beats down, so we would have survived.
So it's still your fault.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'll teach you to take charge of running the game.
So that took the rest of the session. My intentions had been that if they succeeded, they would find the secret entrance to the Radiant Fury's bunker. They just sneak in, they'd win. It's the win button. If they lost, then they were either going to have to go with plan A, which is Twilight Sage sacrifices himself, or it would be a big frontal assault that would be a really hard combat, and there'd be all kinds of like, basically a running battle to, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Since they almost succeeded.
Yeah. We would have literally won on the next turn if we hadn't got.
It was so close. I'm going to allow it. I'm going to say, okay, you found the secret entrance, but there will be guards. And it's only just a couple guards, but you have to take him out quietly. And so I'm going to have a fisticuffs at the beginning of
seduce them.
It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, I
the
don't-
seduction is not between Starborn. It's Starflower to Starflower.
Right. Well, I mean, you play into this is a seduction party.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did comment that the best person to send in for your attempt to seduction was Flint Daniels. So yeah, he's the master of seduction across all species. So
Yeah.
even if it just involves like some kind of weird thing where you put pollen in somewhere,
Yeah.
that's still he's got it.
That
Yeah.
reminds me, right at the beginning of the session, we were just, getting started and reminding ourselves of what was going on. And we were going from the conference room down to Twilight Sage. So we're walking through the hallways. And Shannon asked Tim something along the lines of, if Chen offered, would you have sex with Chen? Or Flint Daniels, would Flint Daniels have sex with Chen? And Tim said, oh yeah, but I had misheard, and I thought Shannon was asking if Flint Daniels had sex with Chen. And I was like, wow, Flint's good at this. Even I didn't notice. I'm the DM. Somehow between the conference room and getting to Twilight Sage, he managed to like there's a bedroom along the way that they snuck off into or something. And